Welcome back, everybody, to your daily update on the state of the Malazan Empire, or in this case, Darujistan and other places, and all of that. Um, yeah, here we are. Toll the Hounds over. I finished it a couple of hours ago, and now I'm gonna try to wrap my head around all that stuff that happened, and I'll probably fail miserably, as always. But can't be helped. I'll just try, and then I'll start talking about Dusted Dreams tomorrow. We'll see how far I get with that on during this week, and then we'll see how things continue from there. So, right, let's go. Ah, cheers. All right. Oh yeah, one other thing. I hope these recordings on the balcony are okay and not too problematic with light and stuff like that. I just love sitting out here, and as long as birds are not getting too feisty, I feel I can do this. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, let me know if you want me to return to my hole under my bed. Um, until then, let's go with book things. Um, so yeah, very elaborate plans have come to fruition, more or less, or so we hope. By which I mean, Anamander Rake is dead, and Hood has survived, of sorts, by dying, but by dying by the right sword. Um, so this is sort of the place where I think it gets really convoluted because we obviously saw Anamander Rake behead Hood last night, like yesterday in chapter 21, I think. And so Hood ends up in Dragnipur. He brings the army of the dead to fight the chaos and so forth, which obviously means, and this is like the big problem, that everyone's favorite Lord of Tears can't get to him. Because you remember that the big goal of Dasim Ultor was to find Hood and kill Hood. Yeah, that was sort of like his problem for like past slights that I won't go in here. But now that Hood is in that sword, it's kind of difficult for Dasim to get at him. Um, which means he starts fighting Anamander Rake, and he kills Anamander Rake, or Anamander Rake lets himself be killed, which I guess is more accurate in a way. So he also ends up in the sword, and then things become complicated in a way. Um, so, what exactly can we make of all of this? All the chaos? I mean, we have even more destruction. We have everyone trying to find Dragnipur, and then Dragnipur gets its own sort of one ring moment where like everyone wants it, and luckily it gets destroyed in the end, which means, and this is the interesting bit, that all the souls trapped in Dragnipur that are still alive are like not destroyed by chaos in this case. Like all the chained, at least all the chained creatures in Dragnipur are released back into the world. At least we can assume that at the end when Envy, I think it's Envy, says that her father Draconus is back. So there's that. So Hood is back, but no longer as Hood, God of the Lord of the Dead, but Hood, a somewhat grumpy, well, they're all grumpy, somewhat grumpy Jaghut somewhere, probably out of reach of everyone's favorite Lord of Tears, who is not exactly happy. But they don't call him Lord of Tears for nothing. We also get that resolution with Spinnock and Calor in a way, where Calor tries to understand why Spinnock stood in his stead and why Spinnock tried to prevent him from getting that throne in Darujistan, which would have been Anomander Rake's throne in a way. And yeah, you don't want to you don't want that job. Not even Anomander Rake wants that wanted that job. He just took that job because he had to. Um, and throughout all of that sorrow, we still, I guess, the point there is, and this is like an important aspect of what we see here in the absolute end with Nimander Gauntlet taking over Anomander's role as ruler of Black Coral, minus one dragon. Um, but there's that conversation that they have at the end. That I realize this is sort of all over the place, but I struggle with like organizing my thoughts today. But anyway, um, he doesn't have to do it alone anymore. And I feel this is a general thing that we see at the end of Toll the Hounds. And Toll the Hounds is very much about these like people like Anomander Rake taking on the entire responsibility for something. And people trying to do their thing on all by themselves. It's Nimander trying it all on himself. Harlow is trying to do everything by himself. Have all these people trying it by themselves, and the end is that this doesn't work. And it is important to realize that you don't have to do everything just by yourself. It is more about relying on, and this is the crucial bit about Toll the Hounds, I guess. It's very much a book about the importance of family. The importance of family, of relying and trusting your family, or being able to do that. And on the other side, all the damage that comes from not being able to trust, from broken families. This entire book, if you look back at it, Toll the Hounds is a meditation on family, on how it works, on what happens when it works and what happens when it doesn't work. Which, there's reasons why that is the case in exactly that point in time. Um, and I feel this is like, on the other hand, this idea of like an era passing of Anomander Rake being gone and not being like everyone, like every Tistandi just putting all their trust in that one overpowering figure, and like having, in a way, to figure it out by themselves now, like, and actually move on to change and like actually accept like the presence in a way, which comes from the point where the Gate to Darkness is now anchored no longer on like Rake's back, but is now anchored in Black Coral. So there is that element as well. There's also, once again, a whole question of about redemption and who can give redemption, who can't give redemption, if redemption is connected to judgment or not. And I feel the conversation that Monkrat has with Spindle on that topic is like very important. It's like, yeah, Spindle gave him a chance to redeem himself, but redemption comes from within, comes from yourself, from realizing what you need to do, or to become that person, to accept yourself. In a way, that's sort of part of the redemption bit there. And yeah, as we know, the Redeemer is the one who does not judge. But that lack of judgment obviously does should not mean vulnerability, or it not, you know, how to say that. It's theology. It's complicated in the end. But in the end, yes, redemption is a very personal thing. You can be embraced, but you still have to actually forgive yourself in a way to fully be redeemed and find that way out there by yourself. And it can't be, we had that already like early on when who was it, when Salind was talking about that or reflecting about that idea that people who want their bowl filled will fill it with whatever that they can get and so forth, and how that kind of plays into the same like direction. But we, once again come sort of to that point, and it's oftentimes that like other people need to kick us, to sort of realize where we are and what we need to do, and kick us back into that direction. That obviously is an important like thing that I guess a lot of us should realize. I mean, a lot of us hopefully already know that sometimes it takes a serious ass kicking for us to get off that backside and actually actively, return to what we think we are, what we are actually. Yeah, what else was there that I found was like really, really interesting? Like Crocus finally realizing sort of where not where he needs to be, but where he kind of went wrong, and how he kind of went wrong in a way. By and this is like an interesting aspect about Crocus's relation, like growth. And this is important because I'm calling him Crocus again because when he's like stands there next to Karsa to defend the body and the sword, he gives Karsa his name is Crocus Young Hands again. So he's come full circle, and he has realized. And this is the other thing I feel with a lot of Toll the Hounds, is a lot of Toll the Hounds is people trying to recapture like something. We see that with Chalice, who obviously fails. We see that with Cutter Crocus, who realizes that he has said goodbye to Daruzhistan, like when he first left the first time. And that return, that doesn't always work out. I mean, it almost never works out, this like return to your, like, to that glorified past. That doesn't work. Time moves on. You can't. It sounds so dumb, but it's like this whole idea of you can't cross the same river twice, or all these dumb like cliche sayings, but there is a truth to that. It's like recapturing something is never possible. And being aware of that and actually taking responsibility and taking, just like being aware, becoming aware of that fact and acknowledging it, and taking the consequences from that, is, I feel, another big thing that we learn in Toll the Hounds in a lot of ways over the entire novel. Basically, this whole thing of growing old and realizing that things have changed, or that some things have not changed, but those are not necessarily, like, while things may not have changed, your perception of those things have changed because you have become a different person. There is definitely that. Also, and this is something that I found, like, because I suck at the timeline thing because I'm not good at it. But how long has it been between the prologue of House of Chains and now? So how young are Karsa Orlong's daughters? That's something I'm slightly confused. I mean, yeah, they're Toblikai, they're tough and all of that, but still. Has it really been, like, I don't know, 20 years time between House of Chains, the prologue of House of Chains, and now? I'm kind of I'm kind of confused here, but maybe they're just like grow quickly. I thought they grew really slowly, but that's a different point. Um, what else? Dare I say that I really love that that scene, just like for a damn joke, with Calor sitting in the bar at the end of Toll the Hounds with that stolen beer, and all the funeral bells are tolling, and he says to the stolen beer, "Oh look, they're playing our song." That was just like I'm sorry, it cracks me up every time. It's over the top pathos. It is just glorious. It's I don't know, really makes me laugh every time, even though there is pathos in Calor once again. And I feel that that's sort of the yeah. Once again, it's Calor. It's he's so much more than just an arrogant asshole. There is a lot of depth there, and I feel that kind of comes through both in the end of like the fight with Spinok Durav. It comes through again, like this despair of him being the kind of person he is, but also not being able to change that fact, and like that point where he says that he would always like even like if the word comes at him, he will always try to kick it in the face. And I get that. It's I do get that. I just wish he would be slightly more personable, but maybe that kind of gets lost after a couple of centuries or millennia of not being able to get anything done. I mean, I don't know. Ask me in a couple of millennia, and I'll probably I'll probably agree with him. So yeah, Anamander Rake sacrifices himself to force Mother Dark to acknowledge him. And see, that's what I like so much about these novels. How Erickson manages to have these like micro level, macro level things going on. Because if you look at what Rake does with Mother Dark, and then you look at the last scene of Harlow's and Stoney Menakis, right? It's sort of the same. Like obviously there's a lot of different reasons, but in the end it comes to that point where the child forces the mother to acknowledge him. It's him in both cases, but like forces the mother to acknowledge them and take responsibility again. Now, I'm not going to go into whether like Mother Dark's turning away was justified. That's not the point. I just want to look at that symmetry between all these different characters going through so very like similar things on an emotional level, but obviously on like very different like power levels, because Harlow is arguably the weakest character in the entire like weak in a like power sense. He's a small child of 6 years. He is yeah. Yeah, right. He's 6 years old. That's Memories of Ice. So yeah, arguably he's the smallest and weakest character in the entire book, and Rake, on the other hand, is one of the most powerful characters in the entire book. And but still, what they do in the end, they both are children who try to force their mothers to acknowledge them again, which is interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about that whole. This is something that I find very difficult to argue with, like to talk about, because I feel, on the one hand, Harlow is one of the most likable, for a lot of reasons, most likable characters in the entire book. But that point where Stani at the end says, "This was not like." This was not a good time. Nothing good came of that time. And Harlow says, "Yes, there did, because I came from that." This is a very, very like you can read that in a lot of controversial ways when you go into like more into politics and look at like discussions about abortion, right? And abortion rights. And now, obviously, that didn't work out. It doesn't necessarily work out in the Malazan world, but I feel there's a discussion there whether, like, I mean, obviously from Harlow's point of view, that makes a lot of sense. And also there is the fact that life once, like, once that person is there and lives there, their life lives their life, they have every right in the world to have the best possible life, and they should have the best possible life and make of themselves the best possible person. That's not the point, but it still kind of is problematic that he, as the child, as the result of rape, then goes and faces his mother. Once again, I feel it's important that he says that, no one else says that, which is an absolutely important thing there. Um, but yeah, there's that. There was another thing that I was kind of confused, but this may just be a either printing error that I missed, I don't know, or just an actual editing error in the audiobook. But that's at some point the temple in Black Coral, in which what's his name, in which that final battle between Clip and Endes Silan and the High Priestess and Nimander and Aranatha, who obviously is no longer Aranatha at that point, um, takes place. At one point, it's called a Temple of Shadow, and I'm like, wait, wasn't that like a Temple of Darkness? Is that just a mistake, an editing error, a reading error, whatever? So I don't know. Maybe you can shed some light on that. I was momentarily very much confused about it. All right. Um, what else was like very important there? I find it kind of sad that, and obviously I know that, and I actually read the book, and I'm unfortunately no longer the so good with remembering it, but I know that Orb Scepter Throne by in Cameron Esselmont takes place in the Ruzistan. But I find like the ending of Cole's character arc, I find somewhat unsatisfying here, because he just walks away and says he wants to find some actual alcohol, and this is, I don't know. I feel like is a an unsatisfying ending in a way, but what do I know? Um, what else? Tuck the Younger is doing something again. Well, that's good. Picker's back. Race got his cat, which awesome. Also, Chowers. I'm not sure how I feel about Chowers like regaining, like gaining actual like consciousness while he's dying. This seems almost like an some kind of Deus as ex machina that I'm like, is that necessary? I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. Um, but still, um, there's like I feel like one of the most important aspects of like the entire like the ending was that one Anomander Rake quote, which is like the epitaph, the epigraph before chapter 24, which is like, if we will use do's and so forth, that whole thing. We know that we have lived, and that I feel is like a very important one there in like over the entire book, and something, it sounds trite, but there is something to it. It's like life itself is something that is worth you know appreciating, I guess is the word I'm looking for here. um yeah, what else? um I feel like what is important here is to see that whole war between the gods, or the alliance between all these very powerful creatures, is like kind of starting to make sense, and we sort of get a first feeling who's on which side. And apparently there was this sort of deal. I mean, we kind of saw that at the beginning when we have Shadow Throne and Hood and someone else meeting and talking. So we know there was some kind of plan. What it was is kind of up in the air. Now we know that the plan apparently was to get Animander Rake and Hood into the sword, possibly out of the sword. Who knows? I mean, that's the other thing. There's like the book does not exactly end with Animander Rake being lost to. He's an ascendant. There's a lot of options, right? He returns into the sword. Other people from inside the sword just get out. Apparently, he goes to the Hold of Darkness. Also, it's not mentioned that he has a chain when he shows up in the sword, which I found interesting. I guess interesting is a good word there. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel in general that the ending just leaves me stunned every time, and it's not exactly Rake's death that does that. It's more like the other stuff around it. On an emotional level, it hits really hard to me. I don't know, and I'm someone who has had a relatively safe and easy and nice childhood, so I don't know. There's that. Anyway, I'm once again rather lost for words. I'll stop rambling therefore, and I'll talk to you tomorrow about Dust of Dreams. And until then, have a great Wednesday, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.